All right, it is a few minutes after, so I'm going to go ahead and start. Oops, not quite start that way yet. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and start, kind of let you all know how we'll run this. So thank you everyone for joining. The goal of this is just to answer any questions that people might have with kind of the change of going to fully online for the spring quarter. And so what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm Breigh Roszelle, for those of you who I have not met. I'm our Associate Dean for Undergraduate Studies, as well as faculty in mechanical engineering. And so I am just here to kind of let you all know how this spring quarter might look a little bit different. And so I'm going to give kind of a general presentation that'll hopefully hit a lot of the key points that we have been hearing about from students. And at that time, if you have any questions, we're going to do questions through the chat option. So if you go up to kind of the Zoom bar, you may have to go to that more where there's the three dots. And grab chat from there, but you can do kind of the group chat from there. And then Tali's going to help me kind of gather those if we have a lot of similar questions, and I'll most likely answer those at the end. So just to point out too, my name and last name are my email, so breigh.roszelle@du.edu. If you have any questions after this, or if you are watching this as a recording and want to ask a question, please feel free to use that email, and then I'll also have it at the end as well. All right, so I think the biggest question that we have gotten from a lot of our students is, what is the spring quarter going to look like? So how is this different? And so you have most likely heard at this point, we are going fully online, and we are going fully online for the entire quarter. So originally it was only going to be for the first few weeks, but now we are gonna complete the entire quarter online. The style of how that's going to work is going to vary by class. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that might look like. But in general, your faculty are going to be reaching out, probably if they haven't already, between now and that first day of the quarter to let you know about specifics. Hopefully they're publishing their courses in Canvas. You can see the syllabus, and they'll let you know how their course is going to be run. One thing I wanted to point out, because this came up as a question, is that there's no requirement for you to be on campus or even in Denver. We know that everyone with what's going on maybe has gone back home, which is a different state or even a different country, and that is totally fine. There's no requirement for you to be able to be on campus. And now with our new kind of stay-at-home orders that we've seen, you can't be on campus. And so you are fine being remote, wherever remote means for you, as long as you have an internet connection and those kind of things. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So some people have been asking about what the class schedule may be. Do you still need to, be available Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 a.m. if that's when your class is? And my initial answer is yes, just assume that that's going to be happening. However, faculty are probably going to do this all a little bit differently. And so some may be what's called synchronous, meaning that everybody is going to kind of meet at the same time online, maybe during that given lecture time that was already scheduled, usually via Zoom, which we're using here, or there may be another online platform that they use along with that. So that is one way that courses can be run. Others can be run what's called asynchronous, meaning that faculty may post assignments or videos for you to kind of work on your own, and then gather everybody back together to talk about them. My guess is many of the courses that we're going to see are going to be a mixture of both. So it's definitely going to be a little bit different than just going to class, getting information, doing homework, but they're going to use a lot of those different tools. So again, your faculty should hopefully help kind of introduce you to whatever their style is going to look like during that first week, which is next week. All right, what else is going to be a little bit different? Because we are in the School of Engineering and Computer Science, we're very used to doing, cool hands-on projects, being in labs, and these are going to also need to be done remotely. And so for things like labs, this could include virtual labs where you're kind of moving and doing things in a virtual environment. Maybe you're watching some videos of experiments and working or commenting on them. There's also computational simulations can be an option. And so if you are using like fundamental element analysis, computational fluid dynamics, SolidWorks, MATLAB, those kind of software, we can do some really cool simulations that look at how experiments would be run and do analysis. You also may be provided with some data to analyze on your own. So these are all pieces of a lab that you would be doing. We're just doing them remotely. One thing we've been talking about, which is really interesting, is there's actually, I think it's the Boeing 777 was an airplane that was completely built and designed computationally before they put it together. So we're just kind of living in that new world where that's a little bit more what we're looking at. As far as exams and quizzes, many of you may have seen these already during finals week because we did completely remote or online final exams. So if you had exams that week, they may have been given using these new formats. So tests can be given through Canvas, same as quizzes. These may use things like browser lockdowns. And so your faculty will go through what that would look like. There's other options. You could do things like take-home exams, or maybe shift the projects a little bit to look a little bit more like that type of assessment. So because this is new, faculty are probably going to be looking at new and different ways to do assessment that may not look as typical as we're used to as far as exams go, but they will definitely communicate to you what that will look like. And then lastly, if you are someone who uses DSP or LEP, they are going to be a great resource for figuring out how your accommodations will look in this new system. So all faculty are aware that they have students that may need these resources. And so while DSP is not, on campus proctoring exams like they are normally, they will be, sorry, I just had a little, hopefully I didn't cut out there. My internet was being a little wonky. But they will be available to help you figure out your accommodations, talk with your faculty, any of that. So we are well aware that you have those accommodations and we'll take care of that. And then one thing I just want to reassure everybody about is I had a question of, do these changes affect my degree or affect, any of the outcomes of the courses? And the answer is no. All of our changes being made are just to the delivery of the content. Okay, so it is going to look a little different, but all of those course outcomes, all of the knowledge that you would normally get from a course, you're still going to get. Okay, these are required courses for your degrees quite often, and so we know that you need that information, and it's just going to be delivered to you a little bit differently. We've also had questions about things like accreditation criteria, and just know that the faculty in every department are making sure that any of these changes will have no effect on that. So don't worry about, in a few different, in a few weeks, all of a sudden it'll be, oh, this course doesn't count. That is definitely not going to happen. One thing I want to jump back to, I forgot to talk a little bit more about hands-on projects, especially because in engineering, we have things like senior design and integration. Again, these are all going to be done remotely. So because the campus is closed and, there's no requirement for you to be on campus, there's your faculty is working on ways that you can be doing analysis remotely, working on your reports, still designing, but designing more through kind of not a virtual, but a remote context. And so we will make sure that all of this is being done remotely and you still get, that full integration and capstone experience. It's just, again, going to have a different feel. We actually think this is an interesting opportunity because think about right now, pretty much, a very large percentage of the world is working remotely. So there are definitely engineering teams that are, trying to figure out how they can continue on their projects using these tools. So you guys are just getting a new way to look at that before you even enter the, quote unquote real world. So we think it'll be an interesting experience for you guys. And we are making sure that you still get that full senior design or integration experience that you would have. Okay, so what do you need as a student? We want to make sure that you all feel prepared. Do I need any software? As far as things like Zoom, for example, what we're using now, you don't necessarily have to have a download. If you noticed, you just clicked the link and it took you to a website and launched it. And so you don't necessarily have to download it to your computer. You can. I like having it on my computer because I can have my own personal room, which we all can have because of DU's license with Zoom. And so I can have students come to that meeting spot. You can do that if you want to meet with classmates or have, some sort of Zoom meetup, but it's not necessarily something that you have to worry about having on your computer all the time. So how do faculty use Zoom for class? So if you haven't noticed, Zoom, I say fancier or maybe just a little bit different version of Skype or FaceTime, because we're kind of used to seeing, FaceTime and Skype are tools that we've used before, most likely. And so they allow for those face-to-face meetings and lectures to still occur, face-to-face being relative with all of our cameras. And the nice thing is I could do things like share my PowerPoint slides. So if I, turned my PowerPoint slides off, you could see me talking, which might be beneficial as well. So there's those options. There's also things like a whiteboard application. So faculty can actually pop up what looks like a whiteboard and draw just like they would on the whiteboard in a classroom. So those of us who are used to, seeing a lot of math in our classes or something where we have to, derive something, we can still do those type of things. And faculty can also share their screens if they have documents or pictures that they want you all to see. So it's a pretty cool software. And we'll, be learning about the best ways to work with it. As I discussed, there's the chat function. Also, students can even raise their hand virtually. So some really cool things. One last thing about kind of preparation. What if you need special software for one of your engineering or computer science courses? If you do need something specific, you'll receive information from your faculty about how to get this. Some of you may have already used these type of things, but you've been on campus. And so if you're off campus, this may require the use of a VPN. We have a new VPN that's being used. It's called Citrix, which I've written here. If you have the old VPN, you will need to replace it. And all of this can be downloaded from the IT website. So I'll have some information about the IT website later, but just keep that in mind. I think if you Google like DU IT VPN, it should lead you right to where you need to download that. So just keep that in mind. If there's anything that needs to use kind of that licensing through DU, a VPN may be necessary. But again, your faculty will keep you updated if that's something you need. All right, a few other things that students have asked. How will this affect things like office hours? Clearly, we're not on campus. You're not stopping by an office physically. And so this is going to, of course, vary by faculty, but I think there's a few options that you may see. One is something like an open Zoom office hours. So for example, right now, I am having a Zoom meeting with you all. I could just kind of, once or twice a week, have 1 or 2 hours where I will be virtually in this Zoom room. You just log in, ask a question, leave. Those are definitely going to be happening. We also, I'm sure a lot of faculty will set up Zoom office hours by appointment. So you just schedule, a specific time that you could meet with them via Zoom. And there's also great things like discussion forums using Canvas. I've heard some faculty maybe using Slack as like a chat function between the classes. So those are all really good options. And of course, we've talked to faculty, and we also hope with you all, and we'll talk about this in the next part as well, that they're going to be really communicating with you all as best they can using things like email, because they're not going to see you in the classroom. So this is, we want to make sure we're still connecting with our students. Okay, and that brings me to my next bullet. How can I communicate with faculty? So fortunately, you should be pretty used to doing things like emailing your faculty. That we're used to, that will still work. You also can send messages through Canvas. So if you haven't done that before, you can message both faculty and other students in your courses through Canvas, which is nice. And then faculty may be setting up additional methods. So as I said, they all have, a Zoom room that's open, or as I mentioned, Slack could be an option for like a chat or discussion forum, those kind of things. So just know that our faculty are here. They still want to be able to be in contact with you all, and they'll let you know those best options. Okay, what other changes have happened? So kind of stepping out of just what your courses may look like, we're used to a lot of other things going on. And so one thing to keep in mind is that the add drop deadline has been extended. So normally this is just the first week of courses. Now students can add or drop a course during the first 2 weeks. So the new deadline is April 12th. The reason being, we wanted students to kind of get used to the online format, figure out what was working well with them. And as always, I would always suggest before you add or drop anything to make sure you are talking to your advisors. And so student advising has been updated to make sure that it can still be remote. If you have questions on general student advising, you can always contact just advising@du.edu. We, of course, in Ritchie School highly suggest that you are working with your major and minor advisors because, especially in engineering, it's very specific, the courses you take. Computer science is very close to that as well. And so making sure that you are not taking anything that's going to get you out of line with graduating, but you should be good. And so if you're not sure who your major or minor specific person is. You can also contact your department chair. So I have all of them listed for computer science, ECE, and MME. One thing to note is that Dr. Ogman is currently serving as the department chair for electrical and computer engineering. Dr. Kadai has decided to step down at the moment. And so Dr. Ogman is going to be in there. And then I also just got a great note from academic advising that said they are also going to have appointments via Zoom, and you guys can book those appointments online. So you can have those kind of one-on-one still meetings via Zoom as well. So I want to make sure that everyone feels like they're still getting advised and everything that they need. And again, if you're not sure who to reach out to, please reach out to me. My email is on the end of the slides as well. I'm happy to answer a lot of those questions. All right, and then one other thing that is moving to kind of a virtual delivery is career services. And so our lovely STEM advisors, Stacy and SB, are going to be doing virtual drop-ins. So this is open to all of NISM, so natural sciences, mathematics, as well as our Ritchie students. There's no appointment necessary for the drop-ins. They last about 15 minutes. And they're going to be every Wednesday from 4 to 5. We'll make sure when this is posted, there's that Zoom link. So if you want, you can take a picture now, but just keep in mind that is going to happen. So we'll make sure that link is sent to everyone. And I'm assuming they will also be happy to answer your emails and set up Zoom appointments with you on a one-on-one basis as well. It's the same thing they've always done as far as resumes, talking about internships, as our seniors are getting ready to graduate, helping them with things like offer letters and those kind of things. So they're happy to help you guys still. It'll just be a slightly different delivery method. Okay, so that was kind of my big spiel with everything that hopefully you have been thinking about. However, if you have questions, please go ahead and type your questions into the chat, and I'm gonna just go ahead and answer those. If you don't have a question right now, but you think of one later, that is my email again. And additionally, if you are watching this as a recording and have a question, go ahead and do that. While you are thinking about and typing in those questions, if you'll note on the right-hand side, I have a lot of different links listed. If students have questions about, needing help with technology or any of the online resources, both IT and OTL have a lot of different information set up. They've been great about, making sure that we have that available to you all. So you can go ahead and look at those different resources if you need them. If you are having issues maybe having the correct technology, so an internet connection or proper laptop, anything like that, we have been asked for you all to reach out to the provost office directly. So it's just provost@du.edu, and everyone is monitoring that account so that they can help any of our students that maybe need some additional support when it comes to technology. Okay, so I'll just wait few minutes to see if any questions come in, and then we will wrap up if they don't. All right, well, it doesn't look like we have any other questions at the moment, but as I said, feel free to reach out after, or if you're talking to other students and they have questions, definitely let them know. We want to make sure everyone is comfortable. So my last note, just know that this is a really different and complex time for everyone, and we are still want you guys to feel part of the DU community. And so definitely feel comfortable reaching out, talking to your faculty members. We want to make sure that everybody feels supported during this entire process. So if you want to reach out to me, reach out to Ashley Sherman, our Assistant Director of Student Services, reach out to your chairs, your advisors. Just know that everyone is feeling the complexity of the situation just as much as you are. So we're so glad that you all are still with us. This is something that's happening around the world. So we're all kind of having this experience together, which is really interesting. But thank you so much for listening. And as I said, if you're watching this on a recording and have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And otherwise, I think this will probably wrap it up for us. So thank you all again.